How you doing there again, folks? Me again, of course, Brandon Wenzel. Come back at you, another offering off my sampler platter. Yes, indeed, folks. Sampler review series of videos I do for a little while. I go over there, try out food and drink items. I eat stuff, I drink stuff. Then, folks, I'm going to talk about stuff. I'm going to let you know all that you need to know about hopefully delicious stuff. That time I'm doing this, folks, I'm not going to lie. I've been awake for maybe half an hour. Maybe half an hour. Which typically means that I shouldn't be doing a review because I tend to be a little bit wacky when I first wake up. But we're going to roll with it anyway because that's just what wacky Brandon does. But we'll get to that. Folks, it's a super simple format. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to try out food and or drink items for you. Whilst I'm doing so, I'm going to yam around about it for a bit. Whilst I'm doing all that, I'm inside my back room. And while with me doing a back room review, hooray, back room, I've got a Peter Can Thunderbolt poster behind me. I got a mask up there. It's a little bit more visually interesting than when I do my reviews in my car, but just easier to do my reviews in the car. What else am I doing, folks? Well, I'm wearing a super cool shirt. Folks, when I wear super cool shirts, I always like to highlight the super cool shirt. What super cool shirt am I wearing today? Boom! It's my brand new The Browning shirt. With sort of a tech priest type of character right there. If you are unfamiliar with the band The Browning, or I don't know if you... I mean, The Browning, they're more of a solo project, but like they've had members and stuff. So yeah, but it's mainly a solo project. The lead singer, a guy named Johnny, he's been working on this whole thing since I believe 2005, and I became aware of them some point in my early 20s. I was talking shop with a guitarist from a band I like, and he made me aware of them, and I kept trying to catch him, just wasn't happening, you know. But recently, literally just a few days ago, I was fortunate enough, I finally got to see him perform for the first time. They were fucking fantastic. I actually got to hang out with Johnny and the guitarist, Keem, after the set. Extremely nice guys. Got a picture with them and everything. I also took some videos of their set. They're on this channel as well, just in case you're interested. But anyway, folks, what am I reviewing for you? Why have I only been awake for so long? I love going to shows. But the days after the shows are the days when I upload everything. And, like, if it's a big show with a lot of bands, I take a lot of pictures, I take a lot of videos. I have to go through everything. Like, it takes days to get it all done. So I finally finished with the Browning show not too long ago. And I crashed really hard, and I just woke up. And I was like, let's do a review. So, what am I reviewing for you folks? What are we doing here? This is going to be a fun one for me because, well, if you know my channel, you know why. Because, folks, we're doing, boom, Dad's Root Beer, but not just Dad's Root Beer, because we're also doing, boom, Dog and Suds Root Beer. This is what I'm calling the Battle of the Illinois Root Beers. Both of these came up in Illinois. Dad's Root Beer has been around since the 30s. Dog and Suds has been around since the 50s, so Dad's has got a little time on it, but these are both time-honored root beers from the great state of Illinois that I happen to live in. Oh, and by the way, I also happen to fucking love root beer. So, with that being the case, this is actually going to end up on two of my playlists. One is my root beer reviews playlist, where it's just root beer reviews, and the other one is going to be my local love playlist. Because I'm considering these local product, even though, yeah, at the very least you can get Dad's other places. Let's do a thing for the thumbnail. Oh, yeah. Sure. Now, going into this, flat out, full disclosure, Dad's is one of my favorite root beers. I love it. Dog and Suds are going to have a hard time making its way up. But, that said, when I was younger, I was a big fan of Dog and Suds. My aunt worked at a liquor store, and they had like a selection of sodas. So sometimes when we would go to see her as she was about to leave her shift, she would let us grab, a few sodas. And Dog and Suds, I always liked quite a bit, and it's been a while since I've had them, so let's see if they can match the goodness that is Dad's. Let's start with the Dog and Suds. One of my adorable hamsters is hanging out. How you doing, Bernard? Yeah, you're a big chubby hamster. Smells like root beer. That makes me happy. This isn't going to be much of a battle. Like I said, man, it's been a long time since I've had dog and suds. Kind of feel like this is going to fall under the category of things that I liked a lot more when I was a kid than I do as an adult. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's not a bad root beer. Let me get that out of the way. Um, it's just it's a little bit basic, if I'm honest. Like, it's not bad. I mean, the Dog and Suds, like, they're famous for their drive-ins. Although, fuck knows, man, you can't find very many of those these days. If I ever do, I'd love to fucking review one. I think I only ever maybe saw one once as a kid. But yeah, they're famous for their drive-ins. I can understand how this would work as a nice drive-in root beer. Basically the same way that like A&W root beer works. You know, A&W, it's famous, for its root beer, but it has actual locations, like places you can sit down and eat. I've actually reviewed a bunch of stuff from A&W. So, yeah, it's a very non-offensive root beer. It's nice, it's smooth, it does, it tastes solid enough. I certainly don't mind drinking it. Uh, yeah, it's not that interesting. There's not a lot of complexity. There's no real like harshness to it or anything. The thing is, and I've mentioned this before, when it comes to root beer, there's sort of like two camps that I think that most root beers fall into. On the one hand, you have your root beers like Mug and A&W, really good commercial root beers. They're sweet, not a lot of complexity to them. Not they're doing one thing, they're doing it well, and they're trying to apply to as many people as possible. I think that's where their strength is. Then on the other hand, you have root beers like Barks and Dad's, which are more for kind of actual, and I'm not trying to like gatekeep or anything, more for people who like a little bit more complexity with the root beer. They've got a little bit more harshness to it. They've got more personality. They're not trying to appeal to everybody. They're trying to appeal more to specifically people who want that style of root beer. Yeah, Dog and Suds is definitely in that A&W and Mud camp. I'll say this: I think if I was comparing it against A&W and Mug, I'd probably prefer it more than Mug, which is sad. Mug was my favorite root beer for a long time. But when I got older, I just fell off of it. I would say I like it more than Mug, but less than A&W. Damn. Well, okay. This shouldn't be very interesting, but sure, let's give it a go. I can't even say, like, oh, I haven't had Dad's in a while. I had Dad's yesterday. I went out to Big Lots, because, like, it's been harder and harder to find Dad's. But Big Lots is one of the few places that still sells them. Ideally, I'd like it in a glass container, but it's just so much better. It's ridiculous. The thing with Dad's is that, like, even by root beer standards, Dad's is kind of weird. It has almost like a smoky flavor to it. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I looked up on their website, I think they referred to it as being like a pepper style root beer, which I've never heard of. But when I read that, I was like, okay, I can see what they're talking about. It's also part of the reason why Dad's can be kind of divisive. I do know people who like root beer who do not like Dad's, even ones who prefer more kind of root beer tasting root beers, because Dad's is just it's very unique in its flavor profile. You can taste Dad's from pretty much any other type of root beer. It's part of the reason why I like it so much. And the thing is, it's still nice and smooth, but it tastes, for me, it tastes more like a root beer. It tastes more like what I want a root beer to be. Still sweet. I wouldn't say like Dad's definitely doesn't have like the complexity of like a craft root beer like a Virgil's or something. But it just, for me, it's kind of that perfect blend between like a more commercial root beer and, excuse me, a more commercial root beer and again something like a craft root beer. It still has an appeal to it. in that, again, it's not super complex, but at the same time, it has that personality that immediately jumps out at you. Like, you could give me 100 root beers, and I could promise you, well, I shouldn't say that, but I could almost promise you that I could taste Dad's outside of any of them, just because it is so unique, and it's been around for such a long time. Yeah. And like I said, this isn't much of a battle. I kind of came into this. Here's the thing: I came into expecting that Dog and Suds probably wasn't going to win, even though I hadn't had it for a while. Even when I was drinking it when I was younger, Dad's was definitely still my preferred. But I was thinking it would be closer than it ended up being. For that reason, Dad's is definitely the winner. Dog and Suds will always have a place in my heart, and I do think it's still a fine root beer for what it is. But what it is the type of root beer that I personally kind of moved past as I've gotten older. Again, the A&Ws, the mugs, and I still like those, to be fair. Every now and again, I'll, grab an A&W or a mug. But it's just too overlapping. It's trying to please too many people, and as a result, it lacks some of that personality that I like. And for me, Dad's is still pretty much the king of the commercial root beers. I just think that it's personally the best. Barks is pretty close. IBC is decent. There's some other ones, but those are kind of the main ones. Yeah, Dad's just wins it for me. But all that said, two questions have to be asked. Would I get either of these again? Would I recommend them? I'm absolutely going to get Dad's again, for sure. That's a thing that will happen. I like Dad's root beer a lot, clearly. It's just, again, it's one of those things that I really like. At some point, I want to do a root beer special, and I'd be interested to see where Dad's actually ends up falling against, like, a wider array. Because, it's one of my favorites, but at the same time, that's, within my personal circle. But I will definitely get Dad's again. And if I'm recommending it to people, again, it's not going to be for everybody. But I think for the people, I would say try it. If you already enjoy root beer, try it. Even if you're not, even if you are more of an A&W mug person, that's fine. Try it. Because I think if you like it, you'll really like it. And I think it's worth at least giving it a shot. Not always going to be for everybody, though. As for Dog and Suds, would I get it again? Would I recommend it? I'm sure I'll get it again at some point. Admittedly, I did get it pretty much specifically for this review. And again, it had been a few years. But it is a little bit more available than Dad's. Like, I don't have to go to a Big Lots to get it. I can get it at a few other places. If I'm recommending it, I would still recommend it. Like, for one thing, I don't think it's a bad root beer. And the other thing is that I honestly think for most people, it probably would be more palatable than Dad's. Just because, again, I think it's more, it's trying to be a more every person root beer. So, in that regard, I would recommend it. If you are somebody who's, again, mug, A&W, that kind of thing, try out some Dog and Suds if you can run into it. Because I do think that there's something there to it. It's just not personally my favorite type of root beer. 5 things before I get out of here. Have yourself a great rest of the day, spectacular rest of the week, monumental rest of the month, stupendous rest of your folks. Go over there, have yourselves a truly root beer-tastic rest of your life. Whether that root beer is Dad's or A&W or whatever, root beer is fantastic. Final 2 things. Number 1, try to bring some positivity in the world. It's not always possible. It is, however, always appreciated. But, excuse me. What do you want from me, folks? Drink a root beer. But, what you do if you can't do it all the time, I know I can't do it all the time. Here's what you do, folks. Try not to be an asshole. Folks, it's not always the easiest thing in the world to not be an asshole. Trust me, I know it. I live it. Look, hamster! Hamster, hamster, hamster. That's my little girl, Yukari Moon. Oh, she's adorable. She's a feisty hamster. That's why I don't pick her up for reviews. She would run around too much, but she's adorable. Anyway, where was I go? When we do run into situations in life, they're stressful, frustrating, etc. Take a step back, try to mitigate the level of assholishness in our lives, hopefully do better for ourselves and for those around us. Very final thing, folks, do the thing. Whatever the thing is for you, that's what I want you to go out and do. Folks, here's what I want you to do. Help me out when it comes to this one. When I, eventually gear towards maybe eventually making a root beer special, what are some of your personal favorite root beers? What are ones that stand out to you? Maybe they're not even ones that you personally try, but maybe there's something that you're just aware of. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know, because, I can go over there and say, okay, I'm going to get this many. All right, well, great. But I'm sure there's like a billion root beers that I'm not familiar with that I'd personally love to tag in on if I did a special. So, or conversely, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can just leave me abandoned to my own devices as I brave out against the storm of root beers that there are. Which, to be fair, that's a great fucking storm. I would be dead very quickly from just grabbing root beers from the storm, and then I would just either be weighed down by them, and that's how I would go, or I would just drink them all and I'd just end up comatose and dead. Bye.